When you think about it, studying abroad, in its many forms, is more than a passport stamp or a semester away. It's a transformative encounter with the unfamiliar. It's a shift in perspective, a rehearsal for global citizenship, and a chance to live beyond the boundaries of what we know. At UCLA, study abroad opens the door to possibility, inviting students to immerse themselves in new cultures, languages, and academic landscapes. So whether you're a homebody, a seasoned world traveler, or simply curious about what it means to embrace a global mindset, this episode is for you. I'm Alvaro Castillo with the UCLA College, and this special episode of Tell Us What You Know is all about the impact of international education, how it fosters intellectual growth, intercultural understanding, and the kind of global fluency that prepares Bruins to live, learn, and lead in an interconnected world. Our tour guide for today's conversations is Rory McGillen, a travel study program coordinator in UCLA's International Education Office. Rory, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Rory. I'm one of the program coordinators at the Study Abroad office. I'm thrilled to be here today representing UCLA's International Education Office, or IEO for short. I began my own study abroad journey with a homestay language program in Valladolid, Spain. Living abroad completely changed my perspective, allowing me to adopt a global mindset. This metamorphic experience has led me to both intern with incoming study abroad students and now has led into my career with outgoing study abroad. Today, we're going to dive into two of our signature programs, UCLA Travel Study and Global Internships. You'll hear firsthand from students and alumni who have studied across the globe. And you'll also hear from one Bruin whose experiences abroad have sparked a desire to give back. My first guest is Audrey Owebate, a sociology major with a digital humanities minor who studied abroad in London through UCLA's travel study program. Her coursework focused on entertainment and marketing, a fitting lens for a city that's home to global media hubs, historic theaters, and a thriving creative economy. Audrey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Audrey, since your particular travel study program was not directly related to your sociology major, what led you to choose the Management London program?
Well, my initial interest in studies was marketing. I applied to all my schools for marketing and broadcast journalism actually, but UCLA was the school that I really wanted to go to. I initially came in as biz econ, but switched to sociology because I love learning about people, but I still wanted to get some sort of marketing experience. So when I decided that I wanted to study abroad, I started looking for programs that had that marketing aspect to it to get some of that hands-on experience. And that's when I stumbled upon Sanjay Sood's program, and he's also connected to the School of Management for UCLA. So he had that perfect lens for me.
How do you feel your time in London, especially studying management through the lens of both entertainment and marketing, has shaped your career goals or the way that you think about your future?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that I got to have insight into the industry, just marketing, understanding marketing in general and understanding how it works and how different analytics and data feeds into how we interact and how things are fed to that was an experience that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. As a sociology major, a digital humanities minor, and I have marketing on my back. I have a lot of different areas to choose from no matter what place I want to go, because I have a bunch of different careers that I'm interested in. So it allowed me to study what I want to study, learn what I want to learn, but then also learn another aspect of what I wanted to learn while studying in a new city. That was a really cool experience.
And what would you say to someone who's curious about travel study but unsure on how to choose the right program, especially if they're considering a specific location, like in your case, London?
I feel the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask questions. The first thing that you could do is start by asking a question and then go to the IEO website, go to the one-on-ones, find programs that you're interested in, go to the one-on-ones and being hey, I'm confused about this program or that program. What can I do about that? Because that's exactly what I did, Roy. If you remember, I scheduled a Zoom meeting for you. I was also interested in the sociology in New York program, but then the London marketing one. And that conversation with you was actually what pushed me to go towards marketing in London. And I was okay, I could do it. And then Roy was so kind. So it was just really nice. Everybody in the IEO department is super inviting and welcoming. So the best thing that you could do is just start asking questions and you'll see that the path forms itself.
Oh, that's very, very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I think one thing students would also like to hear from you is what are the things you brought home with you, either professionally, personally, academically, and some things that you still resonate with today?
I feel the biggest lesson that I brought home with me was the idea that like if you could dream it, that you can actualize it. I know that sounds like so like broad or maybe corny, but it is so true. Like I remember my biggest problem with doing study abroad was being able to afford the program. And I remember I was asking like lots of questions like what scholarships are available, what grants are available, how can I make this work? And all that I had to really do was like find a way to put the deposit down and then figure out the rest of how to make it happen. And like you guys provided me with scholarships to apply to the study abroad scholarship and then external scholarships such as the Gilman scholarship, which helped me pay for another big chunk of my program to the point where I only had to pay like $1,000 or so to make it happen plus my flights. And like that's way more feasible than the number that you initially see. So I would just say the biggest lesson that I brought home was don't shut yourself down before actually taking the steps to actualize whatever you want to do. Take the steps and the path will make its way.
Do you happen to have any tips for any students who are looking to apply to some scholarships that maybe they might feel are either out of reach or just maybe seem a little overwhelmed with that process?
Cast a wide net because you never know what you're going to land. I remember last year for the Gilman scholarship, I literally turned the application in at 11:57 p.m. And I was like, I don't know if they're going to choose me, but at least I did it, plus a whole bunch of other ones. And it was those two really big scholarships that were able to make me actually go.
Well, thank you for sharing that with your fellow Bruins.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to impart on the audience today?
Know how long you want your program to be. The only, I wouldn't say regret, or the only thing I would change about my program is that I got to go for longer. So it's like, make sure to learn about the different aspects or there's also the global internship program, and there's also the UCEAP programs, which can be quarter long, semester long, year long. There's a lot of different programs. So just make sure to like do your research and make sure that you pick a good one because you're most likely going to want to go again. But then doing that process again, you could do it, but it's like doing the process again. So that's what I would say. Find your right program.
And I think that's great advice too, because I know we often have students that, do a travel study program like yours, and then go on to do an internship or another longer program during the academic year. So that's great advice. So thanks for sharing that.
Of course. Thank you.
My next guest is Kailani Kainoa Rivas. She is a global studies major and a Latin American minor who studied abroad in The Hague, Netherlands, a city known for its international courts and justice institutions. Kailani, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rory.
Let's jump in. First off, what first drew you to pursue a study abroad program, and what was it that made travel study the right choice for you?
I've always wanted to study abroad, but I was also really, really scared to do it. I thought it was a good opportunity to finally step out of my shell.
Now, if you were speaking to another global studies major thinking about studying abroad, what's something you would tell them? In other words, how has this program helped you move forward towards your own degree?
As being a global studies major, it is good to have experience that is outside of the U.S. Being in The Hague, going to the International Court of Justices, or going to the Peace Palace was really an interesting way to show us what's going on in the world today.
I think that's so interesting about your program in particular is that you had the opportunity to study in a city that has some of the world's most influential justice systems. Now, taking a step back, thinking about the time before you went abroad last summer, what were some things you did to get ready for your study abroad experience? Were there any UCLA resources, either academic, financial, or even like personal things that you used to help kind of give you the confidence to go study abroad this past summer?
I was very glad I got the Travel Study Ambassadors Scholarship, which covered half of my tuition for it, because honestly, that really helped me.
Is there anything else before we go that you'd like to share?
I overuse it so much, but I do think that it was just a really good experience. I understand why people now have always said like studying abroad is the best experience. It is a really good experience to go out, meet new people, and like just study in a new place. UCLA gives a lot of opportunities financially too to help that. I think a lot of students are missing out, and I think that they should really look into like financial wise, because I know that's a big problem for people, and it was definitely a problem for me. But being able to find something and find like financial resources was a big part in why I wanted to study abroad too. So I really hope that people, number one, look at the resources that UCLA offers, but also just like use UCLA and go study abroad.
My next guest is Natalie Carrillo Andrade, a psychobiology major and global health minor who studied abroad in Sydney through UCLA's travel study program. Her experience combined clinical observations, fieldwork, and research, a meaningful fit for a city known for its world-class healthcare system, vibrant public health initiatives, and a dynamic approach to global wellness. Natalie, Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Natalie, I wanted to start off by asking, as a first year, what gave you the confidence to pursue a program right after your freshman year?
My goal to expand my horizons to a more global perspective, I guess you could say. I've always known that I wanted to study abroad, and I figured, you know what, might as well try it right after my first year. If not now, then I always have other chances, but I just was really eager to get into that aspect of my college experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there's plenty of Bruins who might often think that it's maybe not their time right away after their first year here, but I'm glad have you here today to talk a little bit more about that experience. What would you say your personal, academic, or professional lessons that you took away from your experience in Sydney?
There were so many, actually. I think as far as personal, you don't know what you don't know, and that was a very big lesson for me. I tried my best to go into it with an open mind, and I think there's absolutely no limit as to, things you can learn. There was so many cultural differences, a lot of academic lessons that I learned as well that were really great in expanding my perspective, not just in an academic standpoint, but also just in a cultural standpoint as well. I think as an individual, regardless of where you stand, it's really important to have that global, mindset and be very culturally aware of all the different walks of life that people go through. And that was a really great experience for me to, introduce me to that. And I think as far as, professional, learning how to interact with physicians and really observing how these physicians interact with their patients and how they're able to really create and craft that emotional and safe relationship where the patients feel comfortable to talk to them is really important as a first year, and especially as a first generation student who has absolutely no experience in the medical field. It was really amazing to get to see that and, get to learn those lessons and how I should be acting when I hopefully make it as a physician.
For your particular program, you went all the way to Australia. I was curious to know, maybe for Bruins who are apprehensive about traveling so far from home, what were some things that led you to study abroad in Australia, and what were maybe your top reasons for going there?
I chose Australia because it had a very unique geographic and social environment, and that was something that I really wanted to explore. I think also, their healthcare system was completely different from ours, which I think was really exciting and enticing for me. So I think as far as the differences in, the Australian universal healthcare system, on the surface, it doesn't seem that different. But when you really dig deep and you look into the policies and you really start to observe the different ways that these physicians have to kind of navigate their system and the way they have to kind of navigate billing and making sure that they're providing all of their patients with adequate care, you really start to understand how everyone there, regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of their cultural status, regardless of anything, they all have access to healthcare, which I think was really amazing for me.
And Natalie, earlier you mentioned that before studying abroad, you identify yourself with the first-gen community here at UCLA. Is there any advice you want to give to those Bruins who are maybe wondering more about their place in study abroad?
As a first-generation student, coming to college was very, very scary. Going abroad for the first time, that was my first time traveling outside the country. That was, an even scarier experience, but I have no regrets. I think I absolutely loved, and I have continued to love every single experience and lesson I've taken away from not just college, but that experience in general. It's something that somehow continues to find its way into my daily life, like almost consistently every day. I see something and it reminds me of Australia, and I do something and I'm like, oh, this is reminding me of Australia. And it's just really great to have that experience with you, especially as a first generation student.
And lastly, I know you find yourself on also a pre-med track here at UCLA. Any advice you'd like to give to pre-med Bruins?
Yes. So I've heard from a lot of other pre-med Bruins that studying abroad isn't that feasible just because of the heavy course load that we tend to have. But it definitely is. I would highly encourage it. I think trying to go into the medical field, it's really important for us to have that global mindset in regards to analyzing how these social determinants of health affect everyone's health, not just in the United States, but in practically every country, right? And I think it's really important to, put yourself out there and gain those experiences and gain those, life lessons. And it's something that you can take with you not only on your path to med school, but just in life.
I love that. That's such great advice. Natalie, what would you say this experience taught you about yourself?
I think it taught me to be more comfortable with who I am, in a sense. I went to Australia a couple of days before the program started, and I did a bit of my own solo traveling. And being in a completely different continent for 4 days by yourself, it's a little scary, right? But, I'm navigating these hotel check-ins, these, public transportations. I'm doing all these tickets and, activities by myself. And it really allowed me to be comfortable and, and enjoy my own company and enjoy life as it is and just kind of take it and, experience Australia just for, the beauty that it offers.
Our final student guest is Agi Banitaba. She is a senior majoring in human biology and society who studied abroad in Dublin through UCLA's Global Internship Program. Agi brings a unique lens to this conversation, one shaped by her hands-on experience at Cancer Trials Ireland. She gained cross-cultural collaboration and the kind of personal growth that comes from living and working in a new city. Agi, thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
I wanted to start by asking you what inspired you to study abroad and why did you ultimately choose the Global Internship Program?
So I'm an immigrant student and I've had the experience of moving to different countries twice, and I know how enriching it is to be immersed in a new environment and really challenge yourself to learn. But the Global Internship Program was my first time getting to work in a different country, and I really wanted to experience that. So that was part of my motivation for applying to the Global Internship Program. I'm also a commuter student, so I had never experienced living independently on my own, and I really wanted to do that in a new country. And Dublin just seemed like the perfect place to do that.
Amazing. So I wanted to know, what was your favorite part of living and working in Dublin?
My favorite part definitely was that Dublin is a city that's small enough where you can easily learn your way around, but it's big enough where there's always something to do. So I just thought that as someone who had never worked and lived in a different place just completely on my own, Dublin was perfect, and our housing accommodation was incredible because getting around the city with the bus was incredibly easy. So my favorite part was how easy it was to explore and get acquainted with the city.
How did you prepare for your time abroad, and were there any UCLA resources that supported you along the way?
The most important resource I used was the Global Internship Program coordinators were very, very communicative and helpful, and the International Education Office in general. So I actually wasn't sure if I was going to be able to participate in the Global Internship Program because I had applied for some scholarships and I hadn't received any of them. I communicated with the Global Internship Coordinator, and it turned out that I actually had received a scholarship with the intern group, which is the partner for UCLA in Dublin, and that made me be able to go. So I would say International Education Office is very helpful in helping students secure these opportunities and be able to learn abroad.
That's amazing to hear. I mean, I do want to also give a shout out to our office because there are always advisors and various people you can come in and talk to. Reach out because we do have resources available. And how do you feel that this internship experience influenced your personal, academic, or professional goals? And how will this experience inform your future career endeavors?
Cancer Trials Ireland, it gave me a new perspective into clinical research. Before I went abroad, I had interned at clinical research lab, but I had never seen the behind the scenes of setting up a study with a sponsor and all the administrative work that goes into it. So it really gave me a new perspective into cancer research and solidified my interest in working as a clinical research assistant after graduating. So it was just an incredible experience to see a new perspective I hadn't been familiar with before. And beyond that, working at an office was something that was new to me. As a pre-medical student, I had mostly worked at labs or clinics, and I think that this was a new skill set that I was able to build that's very transferable to any full-time job in the future.
And lastly, before you go, is there anything else you'd like to say to any Bruins who are looking to intern abroad?
I encourage anyone who thinks they could benefit from this experience to apply, even if they have some reservations about applying, to just do it, and you never know what happens. And for anyone who goes abroad, to bring their most curious, patient, and open-minded self to that experience so they're able to really step out of their comfort zone and do experiences that they might not have had the chance to do otherwise.
These experiences don't just impact students' lives while they're still in school, it's a lifelong transformation. Just ask Judson Aitken. He's a graduate of the class of 2012 with a degree in business economics and political science. Judson went abroad not once, not twice, but 3 times through UCLA's travel study program. From studying politics across Europe to international development in China, and even a business law program in Spain. Judson's global experiences helped shape a career in tech leadership. Today, he's a senior executive at Audit Board, one of North America's fastest growing tech companies, and he's paying it forward by funding scholarships so more Bruins can study abroad. Judson, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's great to be back on campus.
So Judson, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your travel study experiences when you were in undergrad?
As you mentioned, I think I enjoyed it so much. I went back a few times. The first study abroad I did, the travel study, was between freshman and sophomore year. That was Western politics, European politics in London, Brussels, Amsterdam, and Paris. That was with Professor Mike Lofgy. Amazing experience. It was kind of, my first time traveling, first time in Europe. Taught me a ton. Obviously, the curriculum was great. I learned a ton about politics and, all of that, but it also just taught me how to travel. The professor's wife, I think, we called her Mama Lofgy. She was kind of the chaperone of the group, and a huge part of the experience was kind of teaching us not just about the coursework, but also just in general how to travel. So there was a lot of emphasis on figuring out visas and passports and SIM cards and currency and all that fun stuff. So it was transformative. I think it kind of gave me the travel bug and, broke down a bunch of barriers for me, and taught me that international travel is something that's attainable and something I can go after. And I liked it so much. I did it again the next summer. So between sophomore and junior year was international business law, international tax with Professor Gonzalo Freixes. That was amazing. That was in Spain, and we did about 2 weeks in Barcelona, 2 weeks in Madrid, and it was incredible. Different flavor than kind of maybe Northern Western Europe, and had a blast. And then liked it so much after graduating. I was a few units short of getting the poli-sci minor and said, well, let me do this again. And there was a international development studies program in China. So I think it was about 2 weeks in Beijing and then 2 weeks in Hong Kong. So overall amazing experience. It taught me a ton, and I would highly recommend it.
How do you feel that that's shaped your future, both not just in terms of your career, but also even on a personal level as well?
I think I can definitely attribute some of my experiences in my career after graduating to the travel study. Really specifically, when I graduated, so I was busy econ, obviously here, and that has a heavy emphasis on accounting. So I took the accounting track. I started off at Ernst & Young, kind of doing their risk advisory, and EY had this Global New Horizons program. So a couple years in, it kind of got on my radar. It was something it was an international rotation opportunity. And I think because I had some of these experiences in college, I wasn't afraid of it. I kind of sought it out and said, hey, this is something that would be a great opportunity. And I applied and I got it, and they shipped me to the Philippines for about 4 months. And that was life-changing in so many ways. It was from a business, from a culture perspective. I think it just exposed me to a ton. I kind of took that into my next career. After Ernst & Young, I joined a tech company, SOX Hub at the time. Now it's called Audit Board. And as we scaled, we grew in North America. A couple years ago, we expanded out into Europe, and we opened up a London office. And I think, again, because of my background, because of the experiences I had in undergrad, I said, hey, I'm comfortable with this. I've had some of these experiences. Let me get over there and kind of help grow the business in Europe. So I've made quite a few trips over to the London office. This year I was there helping us expand out into Germany as well. So definitely made an impact, I think, on my career.
Yeah, definitely. Have you noticed a chance to interact with some folks that maybe you met during your time abroad there, either fellow UCLA alumni or just people you met by studying abroad?
That's one of the things when you talk to anybody who's traveled, the relationships that you build and you develop when you're traveling, they're some of the ones you keep for the rest of your life. I think everyone's kind of in the same mindset when they're traveling, and you can spend a week with a stranger and kind of get to know them, have some of these experiences, and then become lifelong friends just because you both kind of went through that, transformative experience. Absolutely. Coming home from the Philippines, I stayed in touch. I still keep in touch with a lot of my colleagues from a couple years ago. So,
and noting that you've worked across teams that cross cultures and cross disciplines, what would you say a global mindset means to you now, and how do you see it showing up in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say For sure, in business today, I think especially in the U.S., it's a very, very diverse country. You are going to work with people that are different than you, and you're going to work for people who are different than you. And I think having some of that experience, traveling a bit and kind of getting a bit of a different perspective just makes you maybe a little bit more adept at kind of understanding there's lots of different ways of doing things. There's lots of different communication styles, and having that global mindset, I think, just makes you maybe a bit more tactful or a little bit more equipped to navigate, colleagues who think about things differently or who approach problems in a different way. It's very easy to misinterpret somebody's behaviors or actions if you're not familiar with their culture. And I think having some of that background and exposure, gives you a little bit more of that experience. It, again, makes you a little bit more equipped to have some of those conversations.
Is there any advice to, say, junior, senior here at UCLA, and how you can sort of put those skills on your resume in an effective way for employers?
When after graduating, I was doing a lot of recruiting and looking at a lot of resumes, and one of the things I sort of found was, I think there's a misconception that you have to have an internship every single summer to be, an attractive candidate. And I can pretty confidently say that if I'm looking at two undergrads, two different resumes, and one person has 4 internships, but one person has an internship and some travel abroad experience, I think I tend to kind of, lean towards that candidate who has proven, look, I got out of my comfort zone. I did something difficult. I brought back a ton of new experiences. And the message to undergrads is maybe don't over-rotate too much into the work experience. I think getting some real life experience, getting out of your comfort zone is completely valuable once you get into the workforce.
And switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to mention that you've also made the personal decision to fund some scholarships for Bruins that study abroad. We just wanted to know a little bit more about what inspired you to make that decision, and what do you hope students carry forward on their own global journeys?
For me, I got to experience it personally. I directly experienced how transformative international travel could be. Since then, I've traveled with a lot of people where it was their first time going abroad, seeing it through their eyes, kind of watching them get to experience it, and then everything that they brought home, kind of the new tendencies, the new outlook and things like that. It's awesome to watch. And I think obviously there is a financial barrier sometimes to getting exposed and getting that opportunity. So it's super important to me. And if I can pass that on to a fellow Bruin, that's something important to me.
And before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say to any Bruin who's maybe skeptical about study abroad or think they might need just a piece of advice from an alumni?
I would say do it now. Do it when you're in school. There's no easier time in your life. I think the experiences you're going to gain will definitely change your outlook, and you'll bring a lot of that back home with you. And the message is maybe it's a bit more accessible than it might seem. If you can kind of prioritize it, focus on it, kind of work through all the paperwork, it's definitely attainable and accessible, and something that I would highly recommend.
So Judson, when you think back about your study abroad experiences, what do you feel they taught you about the world and your place in it?
It's a big question, but if I were to maybe leave you with one thing, I would say when you do travel, you are inevitably going to have to rely on some strangers. You're going to have to trust people, and you're going to get lost, and you're going to need some help. And through my experience, 9 times out of 10, you will be surprised and reminded that most people are kind.
From London to China, The Hague to Cindy and beyond, Bruins Abroad remind us that global learning goes far beyond travel. Through immersive academics, cultural exchange, and hands-on experiences, UCLA's International Education Office empowers students to think critically, engage compassionately, and lead with a global mindset. Special thanks to Rory McGillen for leading today's world tour, and to our guest for sharing their insights and stories from their time abroad. To start your own global journey, or to help others begin theirs, visit UCLA's International Education Office at ieo.ucla.edu or on Instagram at UCLA-IEO. This episode of Tell Us What You Know was produced by Trevor Ducote for the UCLA College, the academic heart of UCLA. Special thanks to Kayla McCormick for her editorial guidance, and to Roger A. Martinez for the original music you've heard in this episode. I'm your host and writer, Alvaro Castillo. Until next time, Bruins, and remember, Our collective wisdom grows when you tell us what you know.